We're just a month away from the US presidential elections, but the October 9th debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump was more about trading insults than laying out policy.
But we have no leadership, and honestly, that starts with Secretary Clinton.
I have a feeling that by the end of this evening, I'm going to be blamed for everything that's ever happened.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, why not?
We all know about the latest fiasco with Trump 2005 tapes. We know about Hillary Clinton's email server. But where do they stand on key economic issues on the domestic and international front? What do they think about the much debated immigration policy, about Russia, China, Wall Street? Let's find out.
As part of her economic policy, Clinton has said that the tax rates for the rich and not the middle class are going to go up. She supports billionaire investor Warren Buffett's proposal, which says that those who make more than $1 million a year would have an effective tax rate of 30%.
Those at the top have to pay their fair share. That's why I support the Buffett rule, which makes sure that millionaires don't pay lower rates than their secretaries.
She also supports an additional 4% for those who make more than $5 million a year. Clinton has also said she's going to raise estate taxes for when property is transferred from deceased persons to their heirs. Some of the revenue generated from Clinton's taxes is going to go towards making community colleges tuition free, so that people can graduate from public universities and colleges without being in debt.
So let's have paid family leave, earned sick days. Let's be sure we have affordable childcare and debt-free college. How are we going to do it? We're going to do it by having the wealthy pay their fair share.
Clinton has also said that within the first 100 days of her presidency, she's going to unveil a plan that rebuilds US infrastructure and creates new jobs.
So as part of making America great again, Trump has proposed a number of economic plans that he wants to carry out, starting with reducing the 7 existing income tax brackets to just 3, which would be at 12%, 25%, and 33%. He also wants to get rid of the estate tax altogether and drop corporate taxes from 35% to just 15%. He wants to increase military spending and also increase spending on infrastructure, but cut down on everything else by 1% each year. But reducing spending on everything else does not include Social Security programs or the Medicare program. He would also allow families to deduct childcare costs from income taxes and offer further support through an existing tax credit for lower-income people. He also plans to provide 6 weeks of paid maternity leave for new mothers through temporary unemployment insurance. Trump has also proposed paying for this by cracking down on fraud in the unemployment insurance program and through other changes to the system.
Hillary Clinton wants to preserve the 2010 Dodd-Frank financial reform law, which was enacted after the financial crisis, and she wants to further toughen the Wall Street regulations. She wants to levy a fee on large financial institutions based on their size and the risk that they pose. Hillary Clinton would give regulators a greater authority to force financial institutions which pose a great risk to either break apart or reorganize. Clinton has urged the strengthening of the Volcker Rule, which restricts proprietary trading by commercial banks.
Clinton seems to be responding to the backlash against the financial community in the aftermath of the 2008 crisis, and she's called for a new tax on high-frequency trading and for stricter oversight over hedge funds, private equity firms, and other so-called shadow banking systems.
We have to have a much more robust community banking system, regional banking system, other forms of credit access, and that's what I am advocating for. And I still do not understand why I'm having this problem getting Senator Sanders to join me in going after what are the potential problems that are out there, the shadow banking sector and the investment and hedge fund sector.
Clinton's also promised stiffer policies on people who commit financial crimes, and this would include extending the statute of limitations for people who committed such crimes, as well as a requirement for bank employees to return their bonuses if their financial institution has suffered major losses.
I know the Wall Street guys. They make a fortune, they pay very little tax, and frankly, you have to pay some tax.
Trump has promised to dismantle the 2010 Dodd-Frank financial reform law, but hasn't really said what's going to come in its place. The Republican platform has called for going back to the 1930s era Glass-Steagall Act, which says you need to keep investment banks separate from deposit-taking institutions. In July this year, Trump's former campaign manager said Trump supports this proposal.
Nearly all of us are familiar.
Immigration has been one of the key issues for this presidential election, and Clinton and Trump differ a lot on how they plan to deal with this. When it comes to Clinton, she's promised to propose legislation within the first 100 days of her presidency that would overhaul the immigration system and also look at how illegal immigrants can get a path to citizenship in the U.S.
I strongly support the president's executive actions. I hope the Supreme Court upholds them. I think there is constitutional and legal authority for the president to have done what he did.
She also plans to defend Obama's executive actions to defer the deportations of children who were brought over illegally by their parents, and also look at cases where parents who are illegal themselves have children who are legally citizens of the United States. And she's promised to even take executive action to look at such sympathetic cases, as she calls them.
Should be deporting criminals, not hardworking immigrant families who do the very best they can and often are keeping economies going in many places in our country. I'm a strong supporter of comprehensive immigration reform.
Trump began his presidential campaign in 2015 with a vow to build a wall between US and Mexico. He has since insisted that the country's southern neighbor is going to pay for the wall.
We will build a great wall along the southern border, and Mexico will pay for the wall.
He has promised to triple the number of immigration enforcement officers. He wants to hire more border patrol agents, and he wants to make stricter policies for people who overstay their visa.
We are going to end catch and release. We catch them, oh, go ahead. We catch them, go ahead.
Trump has said that he would prioritize the deportation of people who have arrived in the US illegally and have committed crimes, and those who have arrived recently and overstayed their visas. And for those who want to apply for a legal status, he said that he would require them to first leave and reapply.
Under my administration, anyone who illegally crosses the border will be detained until they are removed out of our country and back to the country from which they came.
Trump has also proposed ideological screening, what he calls extreme vetting, for people coming into the US to check whether they fit with American values. For countries where this sort of vetting is difficult, he said there should be a complete ban on immigration.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
In the initial days of his campaign, Trump had also proposed a complete ban on Muslims from entering the US. Critics, including those he was fighting against for the Republican presidential nomination, have said that this is discriminatory and probably against the American Constitution.
Clinton has pledged to defeat ISIS and has said that the first step to fighting the militant group is to eliminate their stronghold in Syria and in Iraq. She wants to move away from what the Obama administration has done and wants to establish a no-fly zone over Syria.
I agree with the president's point that we're not putting American combat troops back into Syria or Iraq. We are not going to do that.
Clinton has said that the US and European allies must work more effectively to share intelligence information, and that Silicon Valley companies should work with the government to track militant recruitment activities on the internet.
You have to fight them in the air, you have to fight them on the ground, and you have to fight them in cyberspace.
In a typical Trump move, he hasn't really divulged details on how he plans to deal with ISIS, but he's promised us that his actions would knock the hell out of the organization.
We will have to bomb, and we may have to do something, but we'll have to bomb, and we're going to have to get people in the region, or we'll have to bomb and just keep the oil. I've been saying keep the oil for years.
He doesn't want to reveal his strategy because he doesn't want to divulge these details to the enemy. And he's also promised that he will give US generals 30 days of his presidency to come up with plans of their own. Trump also opposes accepting any refugees fleeing the violence in Syria and instead wants to create safe zones in the region that would be funded by Gulf states.
Current and former Obama administration officials have said they believe that Clinton will take a tougher line on Russia than both Obama and Trump. She thinks Russian hackers are behind the breach in the Democratic Party system, trying to influence the US presidential election.
There's no doubt now that Russia has used cyber attacks against all kinds of organizations in our country, and I am deeply concerned about this.
Clinton has also said that Russia should play a role in fighting ISIS forces in Syria.
If not your active help, your acquiescence in what we're going to do going after ISIS. So that means you're going to have to pull back from this area while we go after their leadership and their economic infrastructure. But if you want to be part of that, we would welcome you.
Her foreign policy advisor has said she would not be opposed to arming the government forces in Ukraine to counter what she calls Russia's aggression in Europe. Trump, on the other hand, has said he'll have a very, very good relationship with Russia and has previously said that Putin is a better leader than Obama.
I'm saying that I think I'd possibly have a good relationship. I don't know. I think he said some really nice things. He called me a genius.
Trump has said he could work with Russia to combat ISIS. He's also said he'd look into recognizing Crimea as Russian territory and on lifting the Western nations' sanctions on Russia.
The U.S. Army and U.S. Marine Corps, these two
As Obama's Secretary of State from 2009 till 2013, Clinton was a key player in his pivot to Asia. When it comes to China, Clinton has said that she is going to oppose market economy status for the country, and she's also said that a new trade prosecutor will ensure that China plays by the rules.
We got to figure out what we're going to do with China. You know, China is finally having to come to grips with the fact that a lot of its growth may have not been as on a firm foundation as we would hope.
Trump has also criticized NATO, saying that some of the US allies have not met their defense commitments.
The 28 countries of NATO, many of them aren't paying their fair share. NATO could be obsolete.
And in July, when asked about what would happen if Russia attacked a NATO member, he said that he would look at whether the country had paid up before he decided to provide them with defense.
Trump has made criticism of China's trade practices a central theme in his campaign.
They suck our money out. They suck our jobs out. We have rebuilt China. You look at the bridges, the roads, the train systems, the airports they have. It's like we're now a third world country.
Okay,
they took that, and much of it came out of our country.
If elected, he has vowed to formally label China as a currency manipulator, impose tariffs on Chinese imports, and bring unfair trade cases on what he believes to be improper subsidies. He has also said that there needs to be stronger US military presence in the South China Sea. Trump also wants to pull the US out of the 12-nation Trans-Pacific Partnership. Though the trade agreement doesn't include China, Trump is afraid the country will try to enter through the back door. So there you have it, a brief summary of the policies Trump and Clinton have presented so far.
Let's see if anything else comes up at the next presidential debate on October 20th.